We are doing well.
Emanuela, they say, I am doing well. Yeah,
I am mentally, physically, and emotionally able today.
Okay, good one. So guys, if you are joining us online, today's section will be talking about intersection between gender-based violence and economic empowerment. And we got 3 guests. I'm worried that they are all ladies. And before we joined, they were just talking about the men being left behind in this type of conversation. So my friends, dive right in and tell us who you are, where you are tuning in from, and a bit about sustainable development goal that you are deeply passionate about. Let me start with Emanuela.
Yes, I'm Emanuela Chepseba, Agenda Officer at MCT, Chepseba and Co-Advocates. And I am glad to be here. And we are not only talking about the women or girls. We're also talking about boys. We'll champion for them. And we are just giving our different views according to what we've seen and what the statistics have been in the media. So I'm really glad I'm here, and let's have a good and meaningful conversation. Thank you.
Emanuela, what sustainable development goal are you passionate about? Then Martha, I come to you shortly.
I'm passionate about gender equality because it covers both genders, both men, women, both men and women. So I'm really passionate about SDG Goal 5.
Okay, good one. Thank you and welcome to the show. Martha, dive right in.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Martha Wanjiru. I'm joining in from Kiambu. I'm a program manager at an organization supporting vulnerable women and girls and children with disabilities. And I also work as a freelance academic writer. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm passionate about SDG 1, no poverty, because for me, I believe it carries a lot of weight in sustainable development, and all other things intersect with poverty. For example, if you're poor accessing healthcare, accessing education, environmental well-being, it's difficult to access social infrastructure when you live in poverty. So SDG 1 is really my favorite SDG.
All right. Thanks, Martha, and welcome to the show. Doreen, where are you tuning in from and what SDG are you passionate about? Talk to us.
Okay, thank you. I'm Doreen Atieno. I'm a program officer for sexual reproductive health and rights at Nzumari Africa in Mathare, Nairobi County. So I'm passionate about SDG number 4, that is quality education, and SDG number 5, that is gender equality. Because I feel that when women and girls have access to quality education and the opportunities they need, they can thrive and they can be empowered. Yes.
All right. So there is our guest. And if anybody is joining us online, remember our hashtag Ordinary Voices. You had really good introduction, though you meet some men face in the house, but the voice behind the scene is a man's voice. So they are not left behind. And I see Peter, I see Justin, and Millicent has also joined. Only my guest, I know you didn't tell me this, but I know you can spend, say, 10 seconds to just touch on it. What change do you want to see in the world? This time, let's start with Martha. What change do you want to see in the world?
The biggest change I want to see in the world is a just and equitable society where we respect everyone's regardless of their class, diverse background and experiences. We just have a just and equitable world.
There we go. Emanuela, how about you? Change you want to see in the world?
I would want to see harsh policies taken against those who are committing these offenses for both men and women, and would like to see prosecution taken seriously, especially with the story we saw. Ule madam alikatwa vidole na katika kuwa watoto wake. The man is still out there. It's a hearsay, but I think he said he's a very important person and he bribed someone. So I would really like the Kenya ichukulie, the judiciary, to take gender-based violences and put bail prices very high for these perpetrators, because the perpetrators always offend again. Yes.
All right, there we go. Strict rules. Doreen, you also telling us a bit strict rules, or what do you have?
No, I don't have strict rules. What I want to see is that a society where women and girls also have access to opportunities where they can thrive, access to justice, just like Emanuela said, where they can live free of violence, stigma, maybe discrimination. Yes. And also their health, where they can access healthcare services.
All right. Now I think we are chiming into this deep conversation. I see the house is late. So how does increasing women economic empowerment contribute to reducing the risk of gender-based violence? This is straight to Doreen.
Okay, just like I said during the introduction, when women are empowered, when women have access to maybe financial literacy, financial services, I think they are better off in taking their responsibilities, in taking care of their families. Also, they can make decisions for themselves. And having that, they have the autonomy to do what they need to do when they want it. So I feel that that's very important to empower them economically. So maybe they might also have access to maybe loans to boost their businesses, or also access to education where they can learn more skills and which will help them upgrade their lives and the lives of those who are connected to them. So with that, I think with violence, it will be more of not a very major thing, because they say that whoever pays the bill orders the day. So I think that when you have a stand, when you have something that you can hold on as a woman, it's very important for you, and you feel like you have the right to make decisions for yourselves, and you cannot just stay in an abusive place just for the sake of it. So for me, I think that having that financial empowerment is very key in reducing gender-based violence.
I'm just sat here and I'm thinking, if ladies they have more power and they have all the money, they will neglect the men, and like we will have nowhere to go. But I'm curious to hear Martha's sentiment on this one, and Emanuela. I know you have specific ones, but I just love Martha and Emanuela to chime in on this and just add on what Doreen have said and maybe subtract. Martha, what do you think? Will you be more powerful when you have all these tools in your hand, or how will it look like?
For me, I believe the biggest challenge we have is our gender socialization. We have been taught to believe that why women should be subordinate to men, it's because when they get more power, then men will lose their position in society. However, this is wrong and misconstrued, because when women have power, it means they access better services, that is education, employment opportunities, even political positions. For example, right now we saw the elections in the US. Do you think Kamala Harris won out of incompetence, or she lost? Did she lose the battle because she's simply a woman, or it's because she was incompetent? It's because largely she was a woman. So when we gain power, it doesn't mean men will lose their power. It means we'll even have better room for collaboration and coexisting together peacefully.
I like that. I like that. Emanuela, chime in and tell us your thoughts.
Yes, so for me, I am really combative with this. Martha knows me and Doreen, and I'm very combative about empowering both genders in the house, because when we give birth to both girls and boys. And we expect that, you see the way when you talk about when you attack a man with his mother or sister, they get very angry. But those are the conversations that we should be having. We have to shift their perspective that a house that is strong is built on both parents being educational, both parents having empowerment with money, so that we can help each other. We have to help each other because we coexist in this world together. Without men, women won't exist. Without women, men cannot exist. So I really think that we have to shift, and we have to bring men into this, and they have to kutulia. Unatulia, unasikiza perspective. You just don't combat and always, when women speak, men always want to argue and say, hata sisi. But you have to sit down and listen and really find ways. Talk to your sisters in the community, mothers. Mama alikuwa anapitia nini? Si kusema tu mama was strong. My mom was working 10 jobs and she was okay. You never asked her if she was okay, if she had mental issues, if your father was emotionally abusive. So I really think if we sit down together and accept kusikizana, that is the only way we will change our perspectives about if women get money, they'll not need men anymore. Yes.
All right. So watu watulie, wasikize perspective, alafu people wasonge mbele pamoja. Really, really, really good insights there. So thank you for that. So diving right in again, for members joining us either online, you guys can leave your questions and we can always pick them. And I see other guests have joined online. Do leave them on the chat. Remember our hashtag ordinary voices, and you can add global goals if you do like. Now, in what ways can community awareness program about gender-based violence help to prevent incidents of femicide? Let me go to who is taking that? Who want to dive right in? Yeah, go for it, Emma.
Of course, it's my question. So
Grab it, go for it.
I will stress on it again.
Yeah.
Men have to allow themselves to engage with us. We are not fighting you guys. We are not your enemies. But it's because tumekuwa vulnerable for so long in that, imagine, kwa maisha ya msichana hata penye niko, you're always looking, kama town, mimi nikienda town na kuanga nimeangalia tu nyuma, who's ready to do something to me. Like we are always fearful. Hata uende kwa gari, someone will touch you or doing something. And the funniest thing is men will say it na aseme si ulivaa suruali ndogo, ulitaka tufanye nini kama ulivaa hivyo. So I guess men being able to tukiwakaribisha kwa hizi platforms and also wafikirie sisi ni human beings like them. We also have feelings and we have brains. We are not stupid. We've gone to school. I think it will strengthen our support systems together. Yes, my second point is we should be able to challenge harmful norms, especially in patriarchy. For example, FGM and mwanamke lazima apigwe ndo asikie. That statement always disgusts me, and I don't think you should be able to choose anyone's life for them because it's a right. So I think mostly we have to challenge harmful norms and engage men and boys and teach them that a woman and a girl are human beings. We deserve respect and we have a right to whatever they have a right to. Yes, so I think that's the only way. Ukianza kufikiria mwingine in your shoes, you won't be able to hurt them, you won't be able to control them, you won't be able to emotionally abuse them because fanyia mwenzako what you would want them to do to you. So that is what I really think. Tutembe tu tukifikiria ule mwanamke ni kama mimi sipendi kuguzwa, pia mwanamke apendi kuguzwa. Kama sipendi kupigwa, mwanamke apendi kupigwa. Yes.
Okay. Opening my head just around this one, but you did say some solid point there in terms of we do not have to beat somebody for them to listen and to do stuff in the community. There are many ways we can always argue our points and negotiate things, not through wars and fights. So that really stands out in terms of how things are building on and how people are moving on. So, Martha, I come to you with this one. What role do legal frameworks play in protecting women from gender-based violence and ensuring justice of femicide cases? No, that is wrong, Mother. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Let me echo something really solid before I come and say something on that one in terms of what Emma have just stated. Emma, you might want to elaborate this at some stage, but sometimes you see ladies out there and it was on your statement where people just dress inappropriately and men take advantage of that. How can also ladies prevent these situations from happening to them in terms of the dress code, in terms of how they carry themselves along? I see you are all well dressed in this forum, like you are going for an interview. how come people like you go onto street and you see people dressing in a funny way and then people take advantage? In your own thoughts, before I come to you, in your own thoughts, how can this be prevented? And how can measures be taken to stop maybe this from happening?
As I have voiced before, there's called gentle correction, and there's called also ignoring some things, because in America, they also dress the way they want. But you find people, sometimes you ignore, sometimes utaita msichana kama kitambo mzee angekuita kwambie madam, you're not wearing well. There are creepy people out here. So, and trust me, people will listen. Ukishaambia mtu, instead of assaulting them, they listen. Second, people have been brought up in different homes. They have different values. Sometimes you just ignore some things. It's not like you've never seen nakedness. You're all adults. So most of the time, just remove yourself from that situation. Of course, women should take safety measures, but people are different. That is what I want people out here to recognize. Kuna mtu, nakedness is not such a big deal to them. So I would really like, most of the time that I naonanga mwanaume akifanya vitu zingine and I choose to ignore because najiambia grace unto him, maybe he's going through a lot of stuff, and I move on. Utanipata nikichat na yeye sasa, no, I want to fight him in the car, umeniguza ule. No. We have to calm down, take process. Ukisham spunk, what next? You get. And as women and men out here, mimi nikiona mwanaume anafanya vitu hazimhusu, I will come and tell you kindly for the first time. If you don't listen to me, I leave you and go. You see, umepanda matatu, wacha afike stage, apambane na the distance that she's going. Maybe maybe nakedness is the new clothing to her. So I would really like people to mostly mind their own business, and kuona nakedness is not a new thing in this world. Keep your comments to yourself, keep your hands to yourself. Hata sisi tunaonanga wanaume, your chest, and you're like, hey, that guy is hot, naweza shika. But have you ever seen a woman going to spank a man? We also have the same feelings, but we don't act on them. So it's not a black and white thing that you can stop and do it today, but respect for each other. You don't have to voice your illicit issues. You can correct kindly, mtu asipokusikiza, you move on with your life. So I think that would really reduce a lot of things in this world. Ignore, move on, accept people for who they are. We've seen it in US. People wear provocatively every time, but of course, ukishika mtu, GBV cases, special victims unit wanakushika very fast. So we really need to implement these policies of personal spaces and respect for all human beings. So that is my main thing.
All right. Okay. Now, Martha, the foundation is well laid for you. What role do legal framework play in protecting women from gender-based violence and ensuring justice in femicide cases? Martha, dive right in.
So legal frameworks are very crucial in protecting women against, even women and men against GBV, because first of all, it lays the legal foundation for protecting people against GBV. And I'll use an example of Afghanistan. Afghanistan is one extremist country, and they even legalize child marriages. How do they legalize child marriages? They say the minimum threshold for marriages, currently they are pushing for a law to reduce the threshold for marriage to 9 years old. So you can imagine how powerful laws are. So laws are they are the backbone, really. If our government right now wants to stop GBV, they really have the power to implement powerful legal frameworks, and not just stating on law we have the Constitution of Kenya, 2010 Constitution of Kenya, we have the Sexual Offences Act, but qua ground, what is happening qua ground? We still see femicide is on the rise day by day. Why is it on the rise? Because there's no accountability. We have the legal framework, but then there's no accountability. Emanuela had shared that case of Elias and Florence He personally said that he knows people who know people. What does that tell you? When you have money in Kenya, you can easily get away with GBV. You can beat a woman today, you can slap someone today, you can even kill them and still get away because you know people who know people. So our legal framework should be strengthened to ensure that we don't have these loopholes where one can manipulate the law as they want, where one can manipulate the police as they want. We even have cases of women who go to report GBV and they are re-traumatized by the police officers. Why are they re-traumatized? Because the police officers first start asking, how are you dressed? What was their problem? Why were you outside at that time? This show you that there is a loophole in our legal system. And it's important even for the legal personnel that are there, including the police. They are trained on these matters to ensure that they are sensitive even to the victims who come to report GBV. I don't want to go somewhere and report, and then the first thing I'm asked, I'm blamed for my offense. I'm blamed, you must have talked to him loudly. Mbona ulimjibu hivi mama? Unajua wanaume wa siku hizi wanataka kubembeleza. That is a police officer telling a victim, alikasirisha bwanake, that's why he or she was beaten. That is why it is important to have strong legal frameworks that ensure there's accountability, there's prevention mechanisms. Do we have recovery centers for these victims? Because sometimes when you tell people, just walk away from an abuser, I'm married, I don't have the financial safety net to walk away, can I go to a recovery center and recuperate from there? So our legal framework really has a lot to carry. It has to ensure that first it's written down. We have a law specifically stating that it is illegal to do this and the penal code for doing this is this. And we also need to have this preventative prevention mechanisms where if GBV happens, do we know how to support the victim? Do we know how to follow up with the case? Because most of these cases, they are left to hang, like we don't know what happened to the perpetrator. Were they arrested? Is the case still ongoing? So we need to have a clear legal procedure on what will happen and how the victims will be protected and how the perpetrators will be dealt with.
Okay. Exciting. I'm trying to chew wisdom over there, Martha. Deep wisdom, like from a legal perspective, but the gap within the legal issues really affect us and ensure like we are not addressing issues that we need to address. I know Dorina have been watching keenly, also chewing wisdom like me. But now, Dorina, I come to you. How can education and skills building initiatives empower women to stand against gender-based violence and societal normalization? Doreen, dive right in.
Okay, basically when we say about education, just like SDG number 4, that is quality education. I think through education, women are able to know their rights. And when someone knows their right, they know when their right has been infringed or their right has been affected. So I think when we have education initiatives or skills building initiatives where women go through maybe vocational trainings, they take courses that empower them, such that they also know or have the knowledge that GBV exists, and also how can they tackle when they undergo GBV, like what are the reporting mechanisms, where can they find justice, where can they report, where can they find safe spaces, or where can they find support. So I think by sensitizing the community and being aware of GBV, because some people are not also aware that this is GBV. So I think by having that information, it will really assist women when it comes to access to justice, or also when it comes to access to support, so that they don't see it as a normal thing when somebody violates you and you have to maybe keep quiet about it because you are a woman, and maybe it will show a bad picture out there that maybe you are undergoing this, especially for women who are in very, what do I say, wale wenye wako kwa leadership, wale maybe ni viongozi, and sometimes it might be difficult to speak about it. So I think more sensitization needs to be done so that women can have the skills and be aware that if they are violated, they have the right to seek support, they have the right to seek healthcare services, and also have justice. Yes.
I'm just still trying to think, Doreen, for me, and I don't know what Emanuela or Martha will speak about this, but you don't have to respond now. But they always say prevention is better than cure. Preventing it from getting to where we violate women. Men are also like before we were just starting this conversation, you were also talking about men also getting violated and no one is speaking about them. So I'm thinking like, you can always call it and say, flipping the script to stop things from getting to where they are. So that for me, I know Martha also did touch on this one, building more rehabilitation centers, building all these centers. We can actually start thinking around how these things from happening. And I saw a question on the chat. I want you guys to probably think through it, then you will respond to it at the end. Millicent says, the president has allocated 100 million to combat gender-based violence against women. Do you believe that this funding will be effectively be used to address the issue? And what key factors should be considered to ensure the funds lead meaningful and sustainable change? So as we engage on this one, I want your brain to start thinking along that line. And when we come to the end, you guys can respond to it. Because in the conversation and what you are saying, who you know, and this who you know are the people looting funds, they are the people who are corrupt, they are the people who are like messing us about. Now again, another money have been released for them to start again looting and causing the mess. So Martha, I come to you. What are some effective strategies for engaging men and boys, men and boys in the fight against gender-based violence and the promotion of women's rights? Men and boys, I like that one. Go for it, Martha.
Yeah.
Go for it.
So I believe men really have the potential to help us in pushing this agenda forward. And first of all is redefining masculinity. Our society is how we are socialized since birth. Men are always told to be the strong ones, even the dressing, how they interact with girls. They are always given the power and more attention. And for instance, I'll give an example of when we were in primary school, when we were talking about our menstruation and periods, we were usually secluded from the boys. Girls would be told, okay, come outside, we go have separate forum from the boys. So boys didn't get to understand the issues that women go through. They didn't get to hear these stories, how embarrassing. They didn't get to hear how humiliating it can be when you have your period and everyone is laughing at you. So it is easy to involve men in these spaces when we redefine masculinity. We tell them it's okay to participate in gender movements. They can be our allies, because even I, for example, when I call out a man on his misogyny, they are not likely going to listen to me, because why? I'm a woman. They are going to listen to a man. And this is something I've even seen in our family. You'll have an uncle telling you a misogynistic joke, and and when you confront them, they'll just think you're hard-headed. But when men actually take up these spaces and they redefine their masculinity, including how they understand gender issues, including how they understand women's issues, they'll really even build their empathy and learn that the realities we go through as women, they have male privilege. You know, men have, in a patriarchal society, men have male privilege. You are likely to be listened to because you are a man, and I'll be dismissed because I'm a woman. So when we involve men in these spaces, first of all, we need to redefine masculinity. What does masculinity look like? And you'll realize we have a lot of toxic masculinity in our society, where even a man carrying a handbag for a woman, it's discriminated, it's stereotyped. That's a weak man. Going to the supermarket, I even have my own dad can't buy sanitary towels to date. That is toxic masculinity. Why? Because they are told these things are for women, women only, women and girls only. So this is how, imagine you're a single father, you have to take on that role as a parent. You have to go to the supermarket, get the sanitary towels, and you realize that this gender socialization is what actually does more harm than good. Because when it comes to GBV, you are told when you see a woman dressed like this, she'll be raped. But then you realize children in diapers are still raped. Were they dressed inappropriately? No, because an abuser is an abuser. And why are they an abuser? Because of toxic masculinity and these patterns. So involving men
Yeah, I think I'm having a struggle to hear Martha. Are you having the same? Yeah. Martha, we come back to you shortly. We just lost you over there, but I will come back to you shortly.
spaces is
yeah,
very
carry on.
crucial, and we can even have educational program be
Yeah, carry on, Martha. Keep going. Yeah, keep going.
Okay, let me finish. I was saying we can start by redefining masculinity and then having spaces for exchange, like educational programs where both men and women are engaged in this forum, where men act as our allies. They, even in political spaces, for example, right now in parliament, who do we have inside there that we can say is an ally of gender movements? You know, we can leverage such allies. They push for policies that can bring about change. But when we don't have allies, even our representation in parliament is limited. We can have Millie Odhiambo there, but then she doesn't have the support she needs to push for policies that will bring change. So we really need to have allies in this movement, and that is men. Even in marriages, a man can be an ally by supporting by understanding and having these conversations with their partners, where we tell them this is what we go through as women. In the workplace, we go through harassment. So when you understand these issues as a man and as a boy, it will be easier for you to advocate against GBV.
Okay. Yeah, that opens the conversation even deeper, Matt. I think we might be organizing a conference purely for that. So men can be allies, where my girlfriend can join me and your boyfriend can join other people. So we have like people talking together and not women just focusing on the gender and leaving men behind. Emma, I come to you. How do socioeconomic status affect the rates of gender-based violence and femicide in various communities? Dive right in.
I think it affects it because mostly there are gaps in how people earn. So you might find even a woman who earns more than a man who's not working expects the man to just sit there and do things that she wants because they are abusive women. Asipopata kenye anataka atampiga something because anajua hatatoka penye yako. And also for men, if he thinks he has more power or he has more money like Elias, he knows that nothing will ever happen to him. So at least if in a household both the man and the woman are earning the same amount of money, it would, I think there are less cases of GBV in these families than ipata mwanamke ako poor and the other one is not. Also unemployment and economic crises, because the more stress you have at work or the more stress you're putting into your work, the more rising cases of GBV there are, especially, and that's the funniest part, more rich people are even committing these crimes than even the poor men out there, because they know they have money and they know they can pay their way through. So inequalities, the socioeconomic zinakuja hapo. Pia someone would rather date a woman who's not learned or educated because they think they're more submissive and more traditional than marrying someone who's not, especially kuna hii conversation about single women being too independent, so they can't be married because they're too economically empowered. That is one thing I never understood, because everyone needs love and everyone needs help in this world. So I think hizo mostly earning and status, social status ya mtu determine if GBV cases are on the rise or not. So that's my take on that, how it's related to socioeconomic status.
Okay. Yeah, really insightful there in terms of the independency and how people need love, how people need that care and just support each other. Very insightful. For this one, let me start with Doreen this time. Doreen, imagine yourself as being the minister for youth affairs and gender. Okay, so you are sitting there as a minister, not as Doreen Otieno. We've just given you the ministerial position and we've asked you to come up with a policy. What policy will you adopt to help champion and eradicate these issues of gender-based violence and things like that? So we'll go Doreen, Martha, and then Ima, we come to you on this particular one. Go for it, Doreen.
Okay, basically, I will advocate for policy that amplify the voices of youth and women, especially when it comes to issues of GBV and also when it comes to issues of mental health, like where youth can also access services and also participate in maybe campaigns that advocate for GBV prevention. As we know that tomorrow we are starting the 16 days of activism against GBV. So I think that's a very good opportunity for involving young people, especially youth, to participate in such campaign where they can also learn and also gain skills on how they can combat GBV, and this will reduce so much cases of GBV in our areas. So maybe that's the one thing I'll do, just to advocate for policies that amplify youth involvement in areas related to GBV.
Right, getting youth meaningfully engaged. Martha, what specific policy will you come up with? And then Ima, is your turn after Martha. Martha, go for it.
So me for youth, I'd come up with a skills development policy that will focus on using arts, but specifically art, to speak on gender-based violence. I'm passionate really about arts, and the arts includes even film, sports, media. I believe we really have the capacity to use arts to advocate for gender-based violence, because through storytelling, people really get to humanize these experiences. They don't think it as an outsider thing. You know, some things you can think they are happening to other people and not to you, but through arts, we can really bring about empathy, we can humanize these experiences, and we can also it brings collaboration, because when people come together to participate in these art spaces, they have collaborative mindsets, and it also brings about unity that is from both genders, men and women.
And I will engage you on the art stuff. I'm curious on what you draw or what perspective of art you are engaged in. Martha, just know I'm coming. Ima, you are now speaking as a minister, okay? Not Emanuela this time. Talk to us. Policies you'll come up with.
Yes, as the county commissioner, Emanuela Chepseba, I choose Uasin Gishu County.
Yeah, okay.
I worked with the Uasin Gishu County, and we created financial help for women, especially women fund, Uwezo funds, and youth empowerment funds, whereby we created also safe spaces, safe houses for these women. Wakikuja kwetu, tunawapea njia kujiendelesha. Si kwambia mtu toka na anatoka nenda wapi, or anakuja kulala streets ndio akuwe assaulted tena kwa streets, or atafutwe na huyo msee. So microfinances, Uwezo fund, give them something to do kama a group. Okay, for us, we used to do it in Kidiwa. We used to go and teach them about entrepreneurship and life skills, so that they may, watu ukiwapea pesa wanajua wanafanyia nini. Sasa tunapea mtu pesa na hajai manage, he's been living in poverty, bwana ndio amekuwa akifanya ama bibi ndio amekuwa akifanya. So if you give them seme 1K, tunaambia ni themselves, so that they may not go back to the abuser, because mostly what went back to the abusers because hawana place ingine ya kuenda. They think that the other person was able to, heri nipigwe lakini nilipiwe rent, heri nipigwe lakini niishi, oh, heri nipigwe lakini watoto wasome. No, if we empower these young men and women, they'll be able kujitoa hapo na kuji-empower financially so that we may really end this thing for good. Yes.
Emma, you touch on money matters, and this goes like really, really broad. And you hear people come up with organizations, they come up with businesses, and the first thing they are asking is money. And then you give them 1,000 Kenya shillings, and that is when they want to go for holidays. And you're like, my friend, you can't go to holiday, like you can't go for holiday, you've just been given like say another 10,000. So when people get this money, their heads explode, and they're like, this is now the time to do this. So the issue of financial literacy and managing finances can be really, really good. So, good insight there. So you spoke as a minister, Doreen, you spoke as a minister, Martha, you spoke as a minister. So I love you guys to expound on those going forward. Now, I know we are running short of time, but I see some questions on the chat. We might just extend by 10 minutes because we started late. I'm told that technical issues and few other things, but we will extend a little bit. Coming on to this one, this is always my favorite, but I will hold on to that. But I want you guys to handle the first question that came on the chat. So when we come to the last part, then we just dive into our parting shots. Let us go to question 1. I might just read it again, and Emma, you will go, Martha, you will go, and then Doreen, you will chime in. About the 100 million that has been released by the president. Is it going to be another hustler fund, or what are your thoughts in a minute or so each? Dive in, Emma.
Okay, so this is, yesterday we discussed this important point when we were doing a project on implementation of anti-FGM campaign policy in Kajiado County. And what we realized is you can always use other organizations to get these grants and follow up and use the community. We've seen so far, maandamano and what? Involve the community. Go out there and tell people, President amepeana 100 million na wanaikula. What are we going to do for this? March on those roads until they give us that money. Write grants, policy framework, write a concept note, pambana. And you at least hata ikikata, you know you've really tried your best, but mostly community engagement is the best thing you could ever do in this one. Like today, we've seen Moses Kuria being thrown out of church because he was trying to do something that was not at par with the funeral. And the priests already started singing. And you know what happened? He left the meeting and people went back to normalcy. So I really think community engagement and really vividly trying to write grants and use, like, kama mimi nitatumia UNICEF or write WHO an email so that you may go and get that grant. Or ama wase wenye wanawaka CBOs that are working there and are strong enough and they know they have allies in there. I could use the county commission, I could use the gender and sport and arts ministry to write a grant and get that money. So for me, I think community engagement and CBO engagement is really important, especially the women reps also and the chief. One thing we learned is the women rep, they have a low power or low influence, but very high power in the county level, you know. So let's identify what we're gonna high influence and high power so that they may help us tackle this thing.
Emma, before Martha you come in, I want you just to start thinking that is AI influencers coming up. So start thinking along that line. AI influencers. I don't know if you've seen that and how that will shape the world of influencers and those with power, those without. But start thinking. Emma, what are your thoughts in terms of that 100 million that has just been released?
I didn't hear your question because okay.
No, wait. Pepo imepita na my voice. So are you guys still able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I was just saying, the world of influencing now is going to change. And why it is going to change, I saw artificial intelligence influencers, because you realize these people are using online stuff to influence people, to showcase what they have, their wealth, and all those things. So AI influencers is coming up, and most companies and organizations are aiming to use those AIs to promote their work. So that might shift the powers of how people influence online. I just wanted to put that out there for you just to think around. Yeah, just.
Okay, so I think It's important that the way Martha has said, for change, we have to use all. Tumejaribu kukopo physically. We tried doing it on Facebook, tried doing it on Twitter. It's not working.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate the Gen Z. It's really making a lot of things. Inafikia watu wengi because so many people are having tech right now.
Yeah.
And for them to influence, we also need the younger generation to learn that whatever us older people have been doing is wrong. So
Yeah.
I really champion for AI and I really champion for new tech systems because we also need, that's the most important thing, we need tech systems in this gender to fight GBV cases, in that they'll be able to data and monitor a lot of these things so that tujue nani anataka hii help and who needs this and who's the legit person to do it, you get. So for me, I really champion for online influencing. Doesn't matter if it's AI or not. But when it comes to fund reimbursement, I think you would need a physical evidence or data monitoring avenues. So.
Right, good one. Thank you, Emma. Martha, do you want to chime in 1 minute or two to just like tell us a bit about your thoughts on the question, and then Doreen, we come to you. I see another question.
So for me, with the history of corruption in Kenya, what we first need is a transparency and accountability system. Because we have this 100 million, how is it going to be used? We have this history where we have things that are good on paper, but when it comes to actually doing it, we have no results. So yes, the president has released this 100 million, but do we have targeted programs that are going to address the issue of GBV? And if we have these targeted programs, do we have a transparency and accountability system? How are the funds used? Because another thing we may have is that all the funds may be used to pay salaries, pay these trips to, I don't know which conference, pay this trip to another training center. But then when it comes to the ground, the community didn't feel the impact of these funds that were released by the government. So for me, I believe we really need to have transparency and accountability, and transparency in terms of involving the public, even in the audits. The audit report needs to be clear. How are these funds used? Did we have targeted programs? And in these targeted programs, we need to see if it is program A, how much was used here, program B, this was used to do this and that. So it's really important that despite the funds being released, and I'm sorry to say this, or I'm not sorry, but we have seen the women rep, they were not communicating. They didn't say anything regarding the femicide cases. But then we have the president releasing these funds. So it's such a shame that we have leaders where femicide has been happening. We have a crisis ongoing. None of the women reps, they didn't communicate. They didn't say, my office is going to do this and this. We are in solidarity doing this and this. Even the recent case of earlier, was it Eliud or Elias? Was he arrested? Who has followed up really on what happened to him? Because he can get away with it. But again, we are saying we have 100 million. So how is this 100 million being used? So those are my thoughts on that.
Transparency, accountability, and having things we can follow through. That is missing. And then you will always hear people saying, we've had a lot of promises, my friends. And these promises, we are not even following them through. Are we just going to make promises to please people, or like we lose that direction? Doreen, you want to chime in and tell us what you think? 100 million up for grabs.
Okay, for me, my thoughts are, I think the government should collaborate with grassroots organizations, just like I think Emanuela said it very well. Let's just be honest, hapa kwa ground ndio watu wanajua vile vitu zinaendelea kwa ground. So somebody might be in a position, but you have never been there. You have never maybe seen how violence maybe GBV is, especially when you come to these low income areas like Madare, or maybe we talk about Kibera. So you just say maybe we have set aside 100 million, and maybe the person who is responsible for that doesn't understand really how GBV manifests in these areas. So I think by use of grassroots organization, because they really work hard to ensure that there is peace and maybe there's justice in the community. So I think if they can collaborate, it can really enhance the campaign against gender-based violence during these 16 days of activism. Yes.
Deep thoughts. Martha, Neddy says she agrees with you. She's on Facebook over there. She's saying she agrees with you. So shout out to all of you joining us on Facebook and all those other platforms. Remember to spread the word, spread the gospel, so the men and the women and the girls have a bit of fun. So I see this is an interesting one because I saw it in another group. And this was a post from Nakuru County, based in Kenya. A parent has got 9 children, and they are saying people are just having children and they can't give birth, like they can't look after these children, and this is causing a problem. So Millicent of the church says, is being forced to give birth to more children against women's will, or having family planning decision controlled or imposed by men, considered gender-based violence? I would just love to hear your thoughts on this. Emma, in 30 seconds, and then Martha, and then what are your thoughts?
Thank you so much. I've been waiting for this question the whole day, and I think it's an example of gender-based violence. First, they tell us there's free contraception, but if you go to these public hospitals, you see the way nurses treat you when you want to get that. Wanakuuliza sio kuna watoto 9 unataka kujifunga nini? You know, languages. Second, in poverty, you don't have time to do any other thing, so the man will keep on giving you children. That is the only thing they know how to do best. You're not supposed to say no. Most of these women are raped in these marriages. Most of these girls are manipulated in these marriages. Most of these girls are contraception. Culture and religion has really been ingrained in our brains, in that we are not able to selfishly take care of ourselves. So I really think the grassroots problem is culture, religion, and patriarchy. And there is no education for these women. Juu wameambiwa kuabort ni mbaya, kuzaa ndio the only importance in this world. Now utaenda wapi if you're poor? Where will you go? Sometimes you have to survive. You just stay there and do that. Hakuna, and I'll tell you, hakuna mwanamke angetaka kupata watoto 9 na kuwaleta kwa hii dunia kuteseka. Yes, a lot of irresponsible fathers out there pia, who immediately unamwambia uko na ball, they are not able to help you financially. So I think that is the case for me. Okay.
Insightful. Martha, your thoughts, and then Doreen. Should we just have children? And what's your thought, Martha?
So for me, it all comes down to bodily autonomy. And bodily autonomy is very important because some people want to have children and other people don't want to have children. So when we respect everyone's bodily autonomy, we will ensure we have a society where if I want to have kids, does this system support me to have kids? Are the men supportive of me to have kids? Will I be shamed for having kids? Will I be shamed for not wanting to have kids? So there's a thing that patriarchy does. It's reproductive coercion, where women are forced to have kids and they will be shamed for not having kids. So when we have bodily autonomy, it means that if I want to have an abortion today, I can do this abortion without anyone shaming me, without anyone condemning me, because it is my bodily autonomy. And if I choose to keep this baby, it is I who decided I'm going to keep this baby. And another thing I'd like for women to know is that when you're having a baby, please ensure it is an internal motivation, because here's what happens. Some women, because of internalized patriarchy, they choose to have children because they have been taught, oh, huyu mwanaume hubadilika when you give them kids. But reality is patriarchy messes up women. You will have a kid and realize that man was interested in the aesthetic of having a family, aesthetic of saying, oh, mimi ni babaya, but he does nothing. His work is sitting pretty, doing nothing, contributing nothing. He doesn't even know if his kids go to school or what they eat at night. He's just there. So respecting bodily autonomy such that if I choose to have 9 kids, I won't be shamed. You know, this is why I hate poverty. Have you seen how rich families, they will have 10 kids, but no one will shame them because they can afford to support these kids. But if a poor woman, let's say a poor woman has the desire to have kids, like 3 kids or 4 kids or 5 kids, the society will be quick to condemn them because they are poor. This is why I say bodily autonomy is not respected when you're poor. When you're poor, you will be forced to do things out of conforming to society, but that's not really what you really want. So if I choose to have an abortion, if I choose to have kids, it is up to me to decide, do I want the kids, or do I want to terminate the pregnancy, and not the society determining it for me.
I'm like, we got to have 2 more hours in the next conversation. I'm like, you guys are splitting, like spitting wisdom like something else. Doreen, I think we are running even short of time, but Doreen, chime in and have your thoughts before you guys come and tell us your partnership. But I know we will plan more of the sessions. Go for it, Doreen.
Okay, for me, that is an infringement of that woman's right, just like Martha said, because when you speak about bodily autonomy, mostly it's about the right to have children when you want, maybe. So when that woman is forced maybe to have 9 children, for sure she's not really prepared, because having a child comes with a lot of responsibilities and also a lot of preparation. You have to be there physically, you have to have finances, you have to attend to the child every now and then. And so this might also affect the woman's life if she's not really prepared for it. So I think being forced to have children, it's a very big infringement on that woman's right. And it's something that should be looked up to. And maybe men should also know that it needs a lot of planning and preparation to have a child as a woman, and it's it's something that needs the 2 of us. So most of the time, maybe you'll find this woman is giving birth and the man is not responsible, just like Martha said. So this gives a lot of pressure to the woman, and this can really lead to mental health related issues. And you find that this woman also is subjected to abuse and maybe violence because of the situation she's in, and maybe tends to go to solutions that might really affect her life and maybe have a very big impact on her. So I think it's something that we should fight and let women have the right to make their own decision, especially when it comes to having children. Yes.
I'm laughing behind the scene. And just thinking around, well, we need to start having a combined discussion of whether how many children can we have, how many can we have a look at, not just waking up and every single day you are like, oh, let us go have sex. You need protected sex. You need to look to work together to see how many children you really need to have so that you don't bring people on this world to suffer. Now, time to spend, say, 1 minute each to give us your parting shot. So, what is your call to action to the youth? I will add, what is your call to action to youth, women, and everybody out there in relation to their role as intersection between gender-based violence and economic empowerment? Let me start with Martha. Less than a minute if you can, and then Ima, and then Doreen. Let us do that.
So for me, my call to action is remember that it all starts with you and learning what you have been taught, learning and relearning, because we realize that when we were growing up, we all absorbed these harmful patriarchal norms, where we were even making jokes. You know, when you hear your auntie telling, are you, oh, tolewa nini, wanaume ni wanaume, they are boys are boys. You know, it starts with you and learning these patriarchal norms where you say boys are boys. No, boys are not boys. It's how we socialize them, and that is how they grow up, and they think they can get away with anything, because after all, if I slap a woman, boys are boys. After all, if I touch a woman, boys are boys. So that's how we end up with victim blaming, and we make it look like men are they can do anything and get away with it. But when a woman does something, she's criticized to the core. I can lose my job simply by saying I did an abortion. That can warrant me to lose a job. But when a man slaps a woman, the following day he's a manager. We saw the issue of that man who, the scandal of that man from KTD.
We must have lost Martha there. Emma, dive in, and then Doreen, you chime in.
Yes, for me, I keep saying and I keep teaching all those that I'm involved with, do not accept.
Who was, it was recorded even. He didn't lose his lead. Investigations had to happen. But if a woman, I come here and say, oh, sorry, it's my network. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to conclude before Emma comes in?
Yeah, so my conclusion is it all starts with us. We should challenge ourselves and unlearn these norms, these harmful patriarchal norms that we have learned, because you can challenge your uncle, you can challenge yourself, you can challenge your auntie, that colleague, that friend who is making these misogynistic jokes. You need to call them out and tell them to change.
There we go. The change starts with us. Emma, go for it.
So for me, I keep repeating and say, as Martha has said, repetition, do not accept bare minimum. And we need men and women to both take accountability and hold each other accountability. We need men watuingishe kwa spaces zao, because I think most of them are threatened by it, and we need men to also join us, because this is not a war. We will have to coexist together. So tusikubali bare minimum in these spaces, and we would really love if men would become our allies na watusaidie kwa hii fight, because the perpetrators are none other than you and me. So yes.
Men out there, ensure you welcome the ladies and the women in your spaces. And that's what the women are saying. And they are welcoming us into their spaces. Just like Emma, Doreen, I'm coming to you shortly. And then Martha, there is something on the screen I want you guys to look at. And that I'm welcoming you to our spaces because you've said it. Doreen, what's your call? Your call to action or your thoughts?
Okay, for me, my call to action is maybe I'd like to encourage the youth to lead the change, just like Martha said, like challenging harmful norms and also being allies when it comes to fighting or preventing gender-based violence. We should advocate for maybe economic empowerment, support each other, and also learn skills that can help us grow and be united as young people. So we should not have issues like maybe trying to figure out that which gender maybe is more superior to the other, but I think we should learn to advocate for each other and also have empowerment for all of us, so that we can also benefit, learn, and grow. Yes.
Okay, what a lovely conversation we've had, but there is one comment on the chat from Justin, which says, in addition to what Mother said during our conversation, the boys or the men should not take advantage of how girls or women dress and abuse them. They need, there is need for men and boys to be disciplined and have respect for girls and women. I just wanted to conclude that. I know a lot of things are on the chat, but I know this has been a pleasure. And because I can't live without this one, Emma, you are passionate about SDG 5. That is solid. So if you see the Act Now challenge, I know you can dive in and take that and join SDG 5 team. I'm really looking forward to having you join Team 5. Martha, you spoke about poverty, SDG 1. I'd really love for you to join SDG 1, to be honest, so you can champion that agenda over there. Doreen, you spoke about education. I'd really love for you to join Team Education. And then together, all you've spoken about, there is a platform for you where you can meet other members and you can expound what you guys have been talking about. And for me, I will have to say, thank you so much for creating time. I know it is a Sunday. I'm somewhere in a forest. That's why you guys or guests did not see my face. But I deeply appreciate you guys tuning in and listening in. And I hope we will have more of these conversations. I will say thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for sharing insights. And I deeply look forward to engaging more going forward. Thank you.